see what I got. So what's up, everyone? How's everyone doing? Some people at GDC. Who's at GDC? Is Lloyd? Is any of our students?
Yeah, we have like 18 students.
18 students watching right now?
Something like, not watching right now, but at GDC.
Oh. Nice. So I'll be down there, guys, to GDC or San Francisco area, right around sometime in tomorrow, like the middle of the tomorrow, and then I'll be there till Friday. So I will actually be there for more than one day. But I do have stuff to do during the day, so at night will be most likely the time that I'll be hanging out with y'all who want to hang out. I'm going to be doing a talk at the Academy of Arts that Wednesday, which is going to be awesome. And then I'm going to be talking to people, but I'm going to be doing a demo. And then also what I'm going to be doing is, just hanging out. And I think we're going to be going to the Blizzard Mixer. Did you get in on the Blizzard Mixer? Did Jamaro get you in? You know?
Yeah, I'm in.
Oh, cool. So we'll be hanging out there for any of those who are
Yeah.
lucky enough to go. If you are not lucky enough, sorry. I don't know what I can do. Yeah, Jamaro invited us. He wanted us to go. So I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, I mean, yeah, if someone invites me and gets me in, then of course I'm going to go. I had no intentions of going before. But yeah, hanging out with Jamaro will be awesome anyways. I haven't seen the guy in a while. Yeah, and then other news, we launched our boot camp. If you go to our website, robotpencil.net/robotpencilbootcamp, you'll see that we have some classes got, and our classes are doing really well. Actually, we sold pretty much most of them. My class is almost to capacity, but we're still waiting for some invoices to go through. And then for the rest of you guys who might have an opportunity and might miss it, it's okay, because my Learn Squared classes will be available within the next month or two, I'm sure. And then also I'll be doing the boot camp a month and a half later. Again, probably in July or maybe in June. I want to try to start taking more breaks, just so I can hang out with my family. I've been spending more and more time with them, and it's been awesome. And so, like, me and my wife were having a good conversation about it last night, and I just decided, like, this is kind of where I want to be in my life, like for the rest of my life, at least for now, until I feel differently. Which is, like, I always tell people that, I've been always chasing some sort of dream or chasing some sort of thing, and that hasn't really stopped until the last several months, like last 6 or 7 months, maybe like for the last 6 months to be specific. And the reason why I decided to kind of change kind of my mentality is because I wasn't necessarily happier. Yes, I was perhaps making more money. Yes, perhaps I was doing a lot of cool things, but I realized it doesn't really matter. It didn't really matter if I wasn't doing the things I actually did care about doing, which was like hanging out with my family. Like the whole idea was to get more time, but yet I was running out of time. Time was starting to evaporate rather than be created, and that became a problem. And so this is kind of where I'm at now. And I've been kind of phrasing it in the way where I've been telling people, like, I stopped trying to get to the goal line, try to get to the end of the race, which doesn't exist, apparently. I stopped trying to do that, and I started trying to do this, which is instead of chasing the goal line, I was looking for the baseline. And what I mean by this is that I'm looking for something that is my base. Like, what is the minimum of what I have to do to maintain this happiness that I have? And that minimum is really simple, apparently. I didn't realize it until I had a really long reflection of my life, especially in the beginning of this year. I didn't feel healthy. I didn't feel satisfied in my life. I felt I was falling behind on a lot of different projects. I felt kind of like I felt kind of destroyed. I was like, what am I supposed to do? But I've been in situations like this before, way in the beginning of my career, and I approached it the same way that I approached it then, which was like, really kind of be upset, have a lot of anxiety wash over me, let the depression kind of take hold, whatever that was, for just like an hour, just to let my body deal with it. And then once that happened, I was like, okay, now what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do to change this? And one of the many things that I did was change my diet, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit. But more importantly, reflect on what I really care about. And what I discovered is that I really care about teaching, and I really care about learning. Like, I had a really good conversation with my best friend, Kalen, and me and him were talking about this type of stuff, and we talk about this type of stuff a lot because we were very similar-minded. And, I told him, I felt for the longest time that the happiest I've ever been was when I first started to paint and draw and learn how to draw. And I felt that same kind of like feeling was there when I was learning how to play guitar, when I was learning how to skateboard, when I was learning how to do anything, like when I was trying to be a really epic player at World of Warcraft. Right? Remember those days, John? John's dead.
Good times. Oh yeah, very much, man.
Yeah, and I enjoyed just like the beginning. I think, and it made me think like that's probably why I love Overwatch so much, because it's the same kind of experience. Like it's like a new kind of game to get good at, right? I'm sure like in a year or so I'll get bored of it again, or bored of it. Maybe not. It's a really good game, but the idea though. I kind of reflected on is the real draw of all the things I've ever done. The things that I really enjoyed doing was trying to get good at stuff. It wasn't so much, being good at it. It was more about trying to be good because it was so fresh, so new, so interesting, and I liked that. It's not that being a good artist is what makes me happy. It's that I was trying to become a good artist. That's what brought the happiness. And so I'm trying to bring my life into a different realm. And in the last several months, I've seen a huge shift in both my physiology, like not necessarily my physiology. My physiology didn't change, but like my physical attributes, like things about my body started to change and for the better. And then also things about my mentality started to change, and that all kind of really began when I started getting my energy back. And this is where this kind of subject is going to come into the stream now, which is when I started looking into my diet, because I've tried a lot of different diets and I've tried a lot of different like changes to my diet, and I couldn't really figure out what the heck was wrong with me. I would always be very tired, even if I slept a lot. I was always very low on energy, even if I drank like a bunch of coffee or a bunch of energy drinks. When I would work out, it'd get worse. I'll get even more tired. I'll lose even more energy, And so I just couldn't figure it out. And I was just sitting there watching some TV with my wife. I think my wife was on like her tablet or something. Actually, I was watching TV, and I saw this TV show, this documentary. Really, it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was a documentary because it was like on regular television. It could have been, but it wasn't like a Netflix thing. It's like something I can't tell you guys to go watch. It was just on TV, and I watched it. It's like this 3-hour special. And this guy gave advice to people who have like diet problems, and he's talking about the few things that he said resonated with me. And one of the biggest things that he said was that we eat too much meat. Okay? And I was like, okay, I've heard this before, right? And I understand this concept very well. And I was like, all right, well, okay, so what? Like I've tried that. I've tried eating less meat. I've tried like eating like it didn't work. I still feel like crap. But then like this is just me internally talking to myself. And he was going on, and then eventually he got to a point where he talked about something that really made sense. And this is where I've kind of this is where I started diving deep into this dietary change in my life. And one of the things that he said was that when you go to the grocery store, the food that's the quietest is generally the best for you. And I was like, what? And he said, what I mean by this is that when you go to like one aisle of the store and all the food is promoting, hey, eat us because like we're low on fat, we're high in fiber, we're this and that, Like, eat us, eat this because we're good for you. And then you look at another aisle, which is called the produce aisle, and it doesn't say anything. The broccoli doesn't say anything about you. It doesn't tell you how many calories is in it. It doesn't tell you that it's good for you. It just is. An apple just is good for you. Oranges are just good for you. Just eat us because you should be eating us. You shouldn't be eating all this junk that is being promoted in the store. And when he said this, I was just like, oh my gosh. Right? Because I'm a big believer, like, of a lot of solutions are generally simpler than you ever expect them to be. Like, things are generally much simpler. Right? Whenever people ask me, like, how do I become a great artist? How do I become better at the things, like, as an artist, in general? Like, what did you do? And a lot of my talks and a lot of times my speeches are very specifically catered to this idea of all I really did was draw a lot and study a lot. And mindfully study. Maybe not in the beginning, right? Because that's sometimes you have to learn how to learn, right? And in the beginning it was a little bit rough, but then eventually I discovered that mindfully paying attention and being more aware allowed me to improve much faster. And then I just practice, right? If I told you that if you did 20 or 30 push-ups a day, your chest will get stronger, now you know, but it doesn't mean that your chest is going to get stronger, right? Because you have to do the exercise, and then it'll get stronger, right? But at least you know that if you do it, you're going to get stronger, right? And so this is the same kind of principle. I tell my students, now this is how you look at forms. This is how you look at studying. This is how you look at practicing. I have a whole class on this. Not to be all advertising, but a whole class on this, like Learn Squared. I have the whole Painting with Confidence series. Like that's what it's all about. My video tutorials are all about telling you how things are done, right? But then a lot of my mentorships is guided on showing you and making sure that you keep up with it, right? Try to help you build good habits so that way you don't need me anymore, right? It's my best interest that you guys grow strong and epic way beyond my teachings. And so this simple idea that this guy was proposing, like, it just clicked with me. It's like, of course, man. Like, why have I been listening to all these other people who were like, hey, look, this is how you maintain good health, and this is how you lose weight, and this is how you do this, where I know clearly that their motives are driven by making sales. Like, some of these people are like bodybuilders who are clearly using steroids, and yet when they say use my supplement because this is how you get strong, I'm like, okay, I'll just use that supplement and I'll get better. But I'm not using steroids, so it was just kind of this weird kind of like idea that I was going to maintain that strength and ability without steroids. But the reality is steroids works, and most of these people were using it, and some of them admitted to using it, and they weren't ashamed of it at all. And I actually appreciate that. And the irony about steroids is that it's actually a lot safer than some of these supplements, because you can have it administered by a doctor. A doctor can give you the right kind and do it themselves. And so, but I was never interested in that. I was never interested in this type of physique or body, so I just, all I wanted to do was be healthy and athletic. That's all I ever really wanted. I don't really care so much about if I'm huge or if I'm really thin. I just wanted to stop having crazy headaches, stop losing my energy, and just start feeling good again, right? Feel like I actually have some life in this life. And and so then listening to this guy's advice basically opened Pandora's box of me understanding more about my diet, understanding more about my nutrition, and stop listening to these people on YouTube that look good, but they don't know what they're talking about. How many videos have you seen of these super epic bodybuilders or really healthy looking people beyond the age of 70 or even 60, right? Yeah, one of my students thought that one of his favorite bodybuilders was around like 50 or something years old, but we found out he was actually in his 40s. It goes to show how old some of these guys get when they get older, how older they look because of their diet and their lifestyle choices. you know, some of these younger people that are still in their early 20s or mid 20s, yeah, they're going to look good and fit for now, right? And so then I started looking at, like, I said, okay, well, let me listen to people that know what they're talking about. I'm a big believer scientists know what the hell they're talking about. And so I was looking to, like, diet, like doctors whose whole profession was to scientifically understand the human diet, like what we are supposed to eat. And that's when I stumbled upon the vegan diet. Okay, obviously everyone knows about vegetarian diet. It's basically you just don't eat meat, but you can still drink milk and eat eggs. But this vegan diet even included those, and I thought that was pretty bizarre. And I was like, well, it's not the animal though, right? And there's a doctor named Dr. Greger, and he does this great like hour-long special about like this, like 15 or 16 most deadliest diet-based diseases that are killing us. And those are diet diseases basically are like strokes, heart attacks, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis. I can never say that. How do you say it?
Osteoporosis.
Osteoporosis? Osteoporosis. There you go. I got it. I won't forget now. Osteoporosis. And then what else is like cardiac-based diseases, things that cause you to have heart attacks, diabetes, etc. Right? So this guy talks about it, and he basically goes down and shows the evidence day by day, like year by year, how people in America specifically, and those who eat the Western diet, the standard American-based diet, are relatively getting sicker and worse. Okay? And I watched another kind of like guy who was talking, I forget the name of this person, but they brought up a really good logical thought experiment, or really good way of thinking about perhaps we're not eating the best types of foods, by saying, how come the health and fitness industry is increasing in terms of revenue, in terms of participation? That means more money is being made because more people are going to the gym and trying to be healthy. More people are trying to eat these diet plans that some people that have no clue what they're talking about are trying to teach these young people or these old people who already are sick and dying. And yet, we are still the increase of people becoming obese. It was growing. More people were becoming more obese. More people were dying from these diseases. Japan, for instance, was one of the healthiest places on this planet until around 1980, when guess what was introduced to their culture? The standard American diet, which was like McDonald's and lots more meat. Yes, of course they ate fish, but it was more of a side dish rather than like a gourmet. Like even like now, like we go to tofu places, they would serve the fish as the side, right? It would be like a little side dish, but the rest would be just tofu, vegetables like kimchi, seaweed, bean sprouts, right, John? Like everything would be mostly vegetables.
Yeah.
It would only be when we ask. Oh, your mic's on. It would only be when we asked to put meat into our food is when we would get it in there, you know? And that was, so basically that's an American thing, that they actually will put that much more food, like pork and beef and all that stuff, right? And these people actually got skinnier, like, or stayed skinny, like Japan like still stayed relatively skinny, but they just kept they were dying from these diseases. So there's this thing like called skinny fat, and that's kind of what I thought I think I had, is where you look thin and you look fit and you look like you're doing all right, but inside you're dying, right? And some of you guys might understand this. Like some of you might be like in this disillusion like I was, where you're like, well, I mean, I work out, I eat relatively good. Well, at least you think you do, right? Well, I don't understand what the hell's going on with my body. Like, I'm doing all the right things, and that's the missing part. It was the things we were eating. So going back into this whole point, like, I started looking into this. I started looking into the vegan diet, and I could see why people get really aggressive towards the vegan people, like people that are more along the lines of vegan. Because a lot of these guys, like I was watching these videos, they're really passionate activists for animal rights, right? Because that's a lot of what most, like, these people, at least the ones I've watched these videos for, they do it for mostly for the animals. And I think when I was eating so much meat before, I would be very biased. I would kind of ignore the fact that animals get kind of slaughtered in the most grotesque ways, in the most despicable ways. Because I love to eat my meat. I loved Kentucky Fried Chicken. I loved eating steaks, etc. But when I started switching my diet around, I could see the more ethical aspects a little bit easier. But I didn't start for ethical reasons. But I was watching these videos, and I could see why people were really aggressive. But I'm pretty open, regardless of how crazy someone may seem or how intense someone may appear. If they are spitting some really good information and they are giving solid facts and stuff that I can actually trace back and check in for myself, that changed everything, because then I started, unlike these bodybuilders and these health fitness people that I used to listen to, these mother effing vegans, they're showing literal stats, and they're showing websites in which you can check yourself, specifically PubMed, which is a notarized website. It's basically run by people in the medical field. And it's a public medical records of all the tests and all the basically all the experiments and papers and all that stuff that these medical scientists are doing, and are putting it out there so people can read for themselves. They don't have to take their word for it. They can just look at the evidence that was based. And this is a peer-reviewed site, which means it's not a blog that says 16 ways to lose that stubborn belly fat. It's like this is what happens when you eat this type of food over this period of time, done by this test that was run over a period of 2 years, and here's the results. People got cancer. And you're like, oh, what the? It doesn't tell you how to prevent it. It doesn't say how or what you should do in your personal life. It's just saying, we did this test, we did this stuff, and people got diabetes. We did these things, and we did this stuff, people weren't as energetic, or people started gaining weight, or people started losing weight, or people started. It's very objective. They said we think that this certain type of thing may cause this certain problem, and we did the test, and here's the conclusion. And this also is if they're wrong. That's how science works, right? They come up with a hypothesis, they put down the hypothesis on paper, and they test it, and then it's reviewed by their peers, and then we put rockets into space, robots on the planet Mars, right? It's just how it works. We make cell phones, we make computers, we make Apple security that cannot be encrypted, or that's encrypted so that we can't get into terrorist cell phones. Anyways, my point is that I stopped listening to a lot of these people now, and I started listening to doctors. I started looking at people who reversed and actually corrected these heart disease problems, who reversed diabetes, people who've cured people of these symptoms and these problems. And I said, holy crap, I've been listening to the wrong people for the longest time. And there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that comes with this territory, right? Think about it. Your whole life you've been told to drink milk, right? Because it's so good for you, which is one of the worst things you could probably. Dairy is one of the worst, and we're still trying to evolve to be able to digest it. Some people are evolved enough that they can digest it, but all of us are some sorts of lactose intolerance. Some have it worse than others, but we all cannot digest or ingest milk. It's just not good for us. That's why we have Pepto-Bismol, just in case. And so I was just blown away with all this truth, and like I said, the cognitive dissonance, the bias that I had. I'm really good at paying attention to that bias and saying, well, what do the facts say? It doesn't matter what I think or what I believe, right? What's really going on? And that's when I started to look, and that's when I started realizing that I have been on the wrong track. And this is why, at the age of 31, I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes, right? Which just basically means that I'm a few steps away from having type 2 diabetes, which is really bad. And I'm not fat. I'm not obese. I'm very muscular. I'm very in shape. And yet, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had all the symptoms of it, or diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I had all the symptoms, I would sleep, and my hands would be really numb in the morning. Carpal tunnel is another thing that starts to come when you have really bad and clogged arteries. A lot of people were asking about carpal tunnel in the questions or discussion. And this is an artist thing. And let me just assure you guys, I don't have carpal tunnel anymore.
Sorry, somebody's asking what the site was called.
PubMed. And if you want like a more digestible version, Dr. McGregor basically reads, not McGregor, Dr. Gregor reads all of the stuff on these papers and like on other science-driven websites. And you could just go to called nutritionfacts.org, I believe. Here, let me make sure. Nutritionfacts.org. So he basically made a free website where it has tons of articles, has a blog, you can subscribe to it whenever he posts a new video, etc., etc. And you could just watch these videos, and he just tells you what the paper says. And he gives you like a really easy way of understanding it. And it's all free. You don't have to do anything. He has a donate button, of course, for those who appreciate what he does. But he does this for people so that they can like find out for themselves. I'm sure he makes some money from the donations. And he has a book too. I think he promotes his book. So that's how he makes his money. But like from his site and stuff. But I think he actually makes all his money from just his earlier practices. He's basically just doing it for free because he wants people to know. Okay. But you know, people have to make a living regardless of what they do. And so I think for him, what really made me attracted to his site was that he is a doctor and there's no advertisements. Like he's pretty much just, he doesn't put any ads on his YouTube channel too, even though it has enough views that he can make sustainable income, right? So it's very clear to me that he's here in it for the helping of society rather than the promotion of his own products, because he only has really one book and he only has this website, and he's a doctor. I mean, he made money in the past helping people. And so I think it's really very useful. And then PubMed. Now PubMed is much harder to digest because it's straight up like science talk, right? And I can help you guys. Maybe one day I'll teach you guys maybe one day I can do like a whole tutorial series on how I was trying to read this stuff because it's like real intense. Like, I was like, what is going on? Diets with high fat cheese, high fat meat, or carbohydrate. So you can just go through here. Some of them are really easy or like easier. They'll just have a conclusion, and then they'll just tell you the conclusion. It's like, oh yeah, diets with cheese and meat are as primary sources of SFAs cause higher HDL, cholesterol, and APO-AI, and therefore appear to be less atherogenic than is a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet. Also, findings confirm the high cheese increases fecal fat incretin. The trial was registered at clinical.gov as whatever. So you have to look at these SFAs, HDLs. You don't know what that means. Well, they actually hyphenate that later, or they hyphenate it first by telling you what it is. So they will say something along the lines of, what is this? We explored the effects of, saturated fatty acids. See, and so this is SFS or SFAs, and then they'll hyphenate it again, and then so that way you can understand what the HDL means, and then you understand what's going on, and you can read the results, and in these numbers and percentages, you can read what their intentions were. But according to this, basically, it create like the HDL, low density lipoprotein. So I'm thinking, okay, so HDL is probably high density lipoprotein. So what that means is caused higher density lipoprotein cholesterol and APO-AI, and therefore appears to be less atherogenic than is a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet. So I don't really know what this word means. So what I usually would do, because I have Google, I can just Google it. Tending to promote the formation of fatty plaques in the arteries. So it promotes the formation of fatty plaques. That's something you don't want. And then in a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, also finding confirmed that cheese increased fecal fat excretion. The trial was registered in clinical.gov, whatever. So it seems like The full diet period. I'm sorry, I'm like getting into it now. So, sorry, I get real intense now, and I'm like so intrigued with this. So, like these scientists and some people will actually put these up there, and then these will be reviewed, and then people will look at this, and then people will be able to understand more about what's going on. So, what's going on is that I used to just go listen to people like Mike Chang on like Six Pack Abs, and he would give advice like put butter in your coffee, and I was like doing that, thinking that was a good idea, and I didn't feel any difference really, and I was just like, well, this is clearly not, and I actually think it felt a little bit worse, and so I stopped listening to him, start reading those articles, looking for articles that were reviewed by peers, looking for people's advice online, and just seeing the difference of generally what happens in one's life versus another's. And so going back to what I'm trying to say is, like, I was reading all these articles, I was watching all these YouTube videos. So the first thing that I did was like, okay, well, like I know as an instructor, it's really bad to just kind of go cold turkey. Unless you have a really strong willpower, it's better just to kind of start small and not be too hard on yourself. So I said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try removing meat like once or twice. I'm only going to eat once or twice a week. I could do that. That doesn't seem too difficult. So if it comes into my way, I'll just eat it. It's fine, you know? But if I can avoid it, I'll avoid it. And that's what I did. I avoided it for quite a while. But once or twice a week, I would actually still have meat, and I'll get like a... it wasn't because I wanted to get it. It was just because my wife made me fish, and at the time she was totally about this Western diet too. And I would eat some fish, and just because my wife made it for me, I don't want to be like that person. And then the next thing I'll do is, I told her one day, I was like, you know what, stop making me meat because I'm trying to avoid it. And she's like, what? She's like, you got to eat it. It's good for you. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't believe it is. And at that time, I just kind of was a little still on the fence. I wasn't sure. But, I mean, almost a week and a half into this, my energy started like shooting right up. I had a lot more energy because I was eating tons of fruit smoothies and fruits and vegetable smoothies. And because I didn't know what to eat, right? That was like the problem that me and John were running into, because John wanted to try it too. Because we're just so used to just like eating out and eating at these places that clearly the only thing on the menu would be tons of meat. And so it was kind of hard in the beginning. So I stuck to just eating fruits and vegetables, and that was really simple, and it wasn't too hard. And then once I did that for a while, I was like, you know, I think I could just avoid meat altogether. I don't think it's that difficult, actually. I think I could do it. And so I avoided meat altogether. And then this is when my wife started being really skeptical. She's like, what? But her skepticism went away because she knows me better than most people, right? And she told me that she's never seen me so alert. Like I was actually helping out in the house a lot more. I was helping out with the kids a lot more. I was making them breakfast because I wanted them to start eating more vegetables and fruits because I was feeling great. And then that's when I started digging in deeper and realizing like how catastrophic the diets that we were eating are to us. And I felt so much better, and I started losing weight. Like the first month, I think I lost like 7 pounds of just weight just came right off of me. And it was crazy. I was like, what the? And I started looking thinner. People that see me now, they see that, like, people who know me and talk to me, and they see me, they're like, yeah, you definitely thinned out. Because it's just that extra weight was there in my face, in my arms, in my body. And so all that stuff started just to thin out. I started feeling way better, felt a lot lighter. I started exercising to see, well, maybe, like, you know, because there's this whole myth about the proteins, like where do you get your proteins in, right? And so I already knew that was bogus, like a long time ago, way before I became vegan or switched to a plant-based diet. It's because when I originally like will stop eating protein, it was because I knew this. I read too many articles that said that intaking that much protein is actually unnecessary, and that's actually really bad for your kidneys. And so I actually, for a while, actually avoided putting excess amounts of protein powder. But I still did. I think when I first started, I was like, well, I'm going to use some protein powder. I'm going to get some vegan protein powder just in case. And I don't use it anymore at all. I don't use it even a little bit. But at the time, I was just still kind of, you get afraid when you try something different. You want to make sure you cover your bases. And so I did, and then I realized, I was doing fine. I just realized that everything was fine, and I felt great. And I realized beans and rice, I could eat a lot more of them than I used to, because when you switch out the meat, you can start taking in what your body actually needs. Your body actually needs tremendous amounts of carbohydrates, right? It needs carbs. And the whole idea about carbs, like the lot of dietitians these days and these health fitness gurus will tell you that you have to avoid carbs or minimize your carbs. Why? Our brain and our body runs off of glucose. Where does glucose come from? Sugars. What is carbohydrates? Basically complicated and simple sugars, right? How come when you eat a lot of food, you still feel hungry, right? How come you crave sweets? Like, how come we want Red Bulls? And how come we want candy or sweet snacks? Let me tell you, like, John knows too, because he's been around me a long time. Like, when I used to not be on this diet, I would actually I'd eat candy all the fucking time, right? I have not had candy, and I don't crave it, not even a little bit, man. It's crazy. Even when we went to, I think, see Deadpool, and I bought like those fruit snacks, right? I couldn't even finish them because I was like, dude, this is gross. It was weird. I was like, this is crazy because I love these things, I was like, this is kind of like rough.
Yeah,
like, yeah, I was like, this is rough, man. Like, this tastes like I felt like I could taste every grain of sugar, And I was like, man, this is weird, dude. Because I was getting all my sugars from rice. I was getting all my sugars from fruits. And it's funny because I started eating way more whole grains and like beans and rice, and I started feeling sluggish again. But then I was telling John, I think it's because I'm missing out on the fruit, and so I started eating like 4 or 5 bananas a day again, to 6 or 7 bananas sometimes, and then like 2 or 3 oranges, and then 2 or 3 apples, tons of dates, and dude, my energy's back up. And it's funny because I've been losing weight and gaining muscle, so it's like I've been losing fat, gaining muscle, and it's like super easy to do once you kind of find the foods you need to eat, because I just eat as much as I fucking want. If I'm hungry, I just eat. I don't care how big it is. I don't care how little it is. And I mean, I eat as much as I want in terms of, like, if it's like fruits, I can eat as much. Spinach, salads, I'll just eat 4 salads if I have to, if I still feel hungry. Because salads are generally very low in calories. So this is the problem with what our American diet, right? Here's the root of the problem. This is where I started realizing it, is that we eat like a steak, right? Let's say a pound of steak. A pound of steak can easily be between like 1,200, maybe 1,300, sometimes 2,000 calories, okay? Our daily intake should be around 2,500 to 3,000 calories for if you're more athletic. If you're a male, it's about 2,000 to 2,500 if you're athletic, if you're a female. And so we eat a steak that's like either half or 2/3 of what we should be eating throughout the whole day in terms of calorie intake. And it doesn't satisfy us because it doesn't have fiber and it doesn't have carbs. So we get hungry, right? So we have to get snacks. We either eat chips, we eat cookies, we eat candy, we get ice cream, we get yogurt, we get whatever the fuck we need to eat to just satisfy our hunger, our real hunger. Because it will come back in a few hours. And more importantly, when you eat, has this happened to most of you guys? When you eat like a big meal, like a big ass steak or some shit, or some ribs, you feel like you can't move. You gotta just lay down for something. That's your body basically saying, we don't have enough energy to even digest this food. So you need to fucking relax. Don't do shit and let us just try to get, like, let's digest this goddamn meat in your body. And that's what's happening there. And that rarely happens to me now. I don't ever have that unless I truly eat a lot of food, specifically like heavy foods like rice and beans. But even then, like, don't get lethargic after eating a meal. Have you gotten lethargic after eating a meal, John?
No.
No, right? Like it's pretty. Like you eat a meal, you just feel like you feel full, right? You just don't.
Yeah.
Nothing really feels different other than because remember when we used to get Korean barbecue, we would just like we changed our way of eating it because we used to eat mostly the meat, but then we switched to eating mostly the veggies, and then we didn't get so tired.
Yeah.
we would like go for lunch to Korean barbecue, and we would just we would just all just want to like sleep, and so that stuff goes away, you know, like just like you just start seeing the natural stuff. My wife started seeing me lose weight. She started seeing me feeling way more energized. She started switching to the diet, and then bam, she started feeling the same way. She started feeling really great too. And then she helped me with the kids, and now the kids are on the diet. And here's where really kind of like this is where my heart really feels very happy. Like I feel very, very happy that we switched our kids to this diet. Because my daughter has been suffering from like eczema, like really terrible skin, like condition where her skin gets really rashy, really bumpy. We switched her to her diet, and basically she's cured. Like you should feel her skin today. Like we were feeling it today, and we were talking about it. Like, oh my gosh, like she is like cured of this. You know, like she has like not at all. It's like it's gone, and we were like blown away. And we went to get their blood check. Like we got my son's blood check today, and so did my wife, because my wife wants to make sure that we're not deficient on anything. And I told her, I promised her that we probably won't be, because I've been making sure that we haven't been, you know? Yeah. But I'm not a doctor. You know, I trust blood tests than my eye, you know? If we're deficient, we'll just not be deficient in it, you know? Like, it's not a big deal. I don't fucking need to pride to be like, oh, I'm so good at understanding diet now. Like, I could still mess it up, right? And my family's health is more important than my hubris, right? And so she got Delilah checked sooner. Delilah's test came back excellent. Like she's not deficient in anything, and her fucking skin condition's pretty much gone. And we're just like, well, I was like, see, I think we're good. I was like, we'll make sure that you're fine. And so same thing with Julian, you know. And we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, because she was talking about how the pediatrician was doing all this cool stuff, and she was really happy with the pediatrician. And I was like, you know, let me just say something. And I was like, no offense to our pediatrician, because she is great, and she's really helpful, right? But we cured our daughter of this, not her, you know? Like, it was us that fixed our daughter, not her. And it goes to show that it's not her fault, because in the medical field, diet and nutrition is like a 3-hour course in their 13 years of medical school. Yeah. So it might be safe to say that I might know more than our pediatrician when it comes to diet, right? And I think I was right, because like our kids are getting healed, you know? And I'm not saying that I can now go do like heart surgery, or I can go like remove like, you know, someone's ribs and replace them with like synthetic robot ribs. But like you guys can be more educated too, just like I did, right? Like you don't have to go to the doctor to know how to heal yourself, specifically with food, right? What were you gonna say, John? You're unmuted.
Nothing. I was just gonna go in to try to swoop in, go into questions soon.
Yeah, we still have a half an hour.
Okay,
I'm keeping track of time.
Gonna bring it up.
Yeah, thanks, man. Okay, so getting into like kind of the whole point of all this, right? Because a lot of people might be curious and like concerned about certain things. Just know that we've been lied to, okay? Because it's bad for business if people stop eating burgers and meat and eggs and milk. You think these people care about your health, right? The tobacco industry, if they could, they would still advertise, you know? The tobacco industry knows that they're killing people, but they still sell cigarettes. You think these people, even if they knew they were killing you, they would stop selling meat, right? I don't think so, man. And so this really kind of, this is where I think like the first month into I got like really pissed. John was there. I was like so pissed when I thought about it more. Medical industry too, like they want to give you drugs. Why are they giving you drugs? Because healthy people don't need drugs. You understand? And so they need to keep you unhealthy enough that you keep asking for medicine, but not too unhealthy that you're dead, because then you can't keep spending money. So keep all this in mind when you guys do your own research. I would say if anyone who's truly serious about switching their diet, they feel these are the types of things that are also affecting them in their lives, or they're afraid that they will get these things later in their life, my piece of advice is don't immediately switch over. Like, start small, do what I did, just do research after research, watch videos, get intel, look at the examples, react to how your body is reacting. Like, if you don't eat enough food, this is like one of the number one problems, because we're so used to eating like these huge, dense, calorically dense foods that are not satisfying, that we're used to the staple of diet that we shouldn't eat a lot. But trust me, once you switch over, you can eat almost as much as you want. Almost. You can still get chunky, don't get me wrong. You could definitely, if you eat too much of anything, it doesn't matter, right? It's just that like McDonald's burger is already too much of something in one like bite, right? And so for me, it has become a very clear thing, and I switched. First thing that I did was like eliminate meat, like to 1 or twice a week. I would only have meat once or twice a week. Then the next thing I did was switch to pretty much not eating meat at all, and then eliminating dairy. I never liked milk anyways. Cheese I think was a hard one, but it was fine. Butter definitely was hard, but it's fine. And then I got rid of that. Then the next was to start learning how to cook my own meals. Then I started doing that. The next was to find like really cheap solutions to foods so I can cook more often, and I did that. And then the next was to don't eat as much, like, because you can still eat out. There's plenty of places that still have, especially if you live in California, that have great alternatives. Like Veggie Grill is like freaking amazing. But then I started to eat less of that, because I was sometimes too lazy to still cook, and I would have like prepare myself. I wouldn't prepare myself food anymore. I would just eat like Veggie Grill. So I stopped eating that. I basically told myself I could only have one real processed meal a week, and I think this is kind of where I'm at now. And I think the next step would be to try to eat pretty much mostly uncooked foods. That's my next goal. And tons of fruit, way more fruit than I am eating now. Like, I need to get in the habit of eating like 10, maybe 15 bananas a day, or something equivalent to that. Like tons of fruits, tons of oranges, tons of apple. Like, just eat fruit all day. And then eat more greens, dark leafy greens, like kale, spinach, broccoli, get stuff like that in my diet more often, so I can maintain strength and energy.
Did you say no bread?
Oh, you can have bread. You just gotta read the ingredients. Some bread's made with eggs and honey and milk. But if you just read the ingredients, they usually will tell you what's in it, and there'll be a lot of fancy words, and that's that's the marketing to try to avoid you from understanding what's actually in the food, right? But it is by law, specifically in America, by law, that if it is milk, that it clearly says milk. Okay? If it's eggs, it has to clearly say eggs. Okay? Milk, eggs, soy, wheat, nuts of any kind, it has to say whatever it is, because there are people that are highly allergic to these specific things. So if you hide that, if you wrote like some lactase sulfurite, like phosphorus, whatever the fuck, like the chemical name of it is, it would still be milk, right? But you lied to your... Then trust me, that's what they're doing. That's why you try to get foods with very limited of ingredients, like ingredients that you can understand. Otherwise, yeah, wheat bread is fine. Like, even white bread, some white breads are fine. Like, just don't get milk, eggs, or honey, and you should be good.
Someone said, what about coffee or caffeine? Do you drink it?
Coffee's fine. No, so I stopped drinking coffee specifically. I was just telling John about this, because coffee will disguise your fatigue, right? You need to feel tired. That's your body's way of saying that you're not rested enough, or you're not well nutrient. Like, you're not eating enough, or you're not hydrated enough, or you're not. So if you're hiding that, then you're not fixing the problem, are you? You're just kind of hiding it, and you're just like letting yourself slowly die without realizing. And so, but a cup of coffee is fine. Like, you're totally fine with a cup of coffee a day, at least from what I saw. I know some real strong vegan dieters who just don't eat any coffee, any salt. They're like, this is the raw foods diet basically. They only eat like fruits and vegetables, like nothing cooked. It's just crazy intense. But even these people know that, even though that they feel that this is the most optimal diet, they know that as long as you exclude the meat and dairy and eggs out of your diet, that you're already amongst the 90% of more healthier people on this planet. Okay? Especially if you're eating more whole foods. It doesn't matter if it's rice or you cooked it or something, you're still going to be healthier than someone who eats a cheeseburger. Right? Way healthier than anyone who eats a steak and all these other things, right? So coffee's fine, yeah. Coffee's absolutely fine. I think the more pure, obviously, of anything is better, right? Like some people roast their own coffee. That's like hardcore.
Someone said, he said, "Oh well, I'll give it a shot. I can't remember last time I ate a fruit."
That's
but like
real
you
bad,
said,
dude.
I'll start small.
Yeah, that's real bad. So like, I'm not gonna get personal, but I bet like when you don't eat enough vegetables and fruits, like you don't digest well, and if you don't digest well, you don't poop very good. Like when you switch over to a plant-based diet, you'll start to like poop really good all the time. Like really good. It's like a really pleasant experience. And that's a good way of showing that your body is getting rid of the lack of nutrients that you're eating and keeping all the good stuff. And if you find yourself drinking a lot of sugary drinks, or you're finding yourself eating a lot of sugary foods, or you're putting a lot of sugar and cream in your coffee, like if you don't do any of these things, like if you just if you don't eat anything that's heavily sugary, and yet you're don't eat any fruits and you feel fine, then you're an anomaly. You're substituting your sugar with something, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. I don't know you, but you're definitely putting it in there somewhere. And milk, by the way, has more sugar than like what you call it, freaking some sodas, which is bizarre, right? You wouldn't think that, but it does, because that shit doesn't taste good unless you put a lot of sugar and salt in it. We actually don't like the taste of raw cow milk because we fucking shouldn't be drinking that shit. All right, let's answer some of the questions on the discussion page first, and then we'll get to the questions that are more relevant. Right. Just because those people wrote first, so let's get to them first.
All right. Someone said, so a little more serious question. Do you have, or before that he said, so do you think you look like the bearded guy in Ex Machina?
No. Next.
So a little more serious question. Do you have any tips for me on how to get recognized as a concept artist?
Yeah, of course. So the best tip I could say is to post often, share your work with your friends, your colleagues, create a blog. But the best way to do it, obviously, is just to have better work. And I usually tell my students and people that are trying to get better, focus less on about like the publicity part of it. Like that's the least of your concerns. Like I think most people understand how to do it. You just gotta post often and frequently and consistently. But what really matters is the quality of it. Okay, so just focus on the quality for however long you need to. And if you're not sure if you're good enough, you could just do what I did, which is post. Even though I wasn't good enough, I just post all the time. I didn't care that I was bad, and then I just eventually just got good, and then people started paying attention then rather than later. So yeah, I mean, just there's no formula to get recognized other than really having good work and posting enough for people to recognize or have an opportunity to recognize you.
Next question says, this might sound a bit stupid, but how many times do you eat a day, and when do you eat during the day? Also. Yeah. Sure. How do you deal with sluggish feeling after having a big meal?
I just kind of talked about that, yeah. So I think I read this question too. I already have a good idea what he's going for. I don't feel sluggish, and if I do, I feel like I think I've discovered it's because I'm not eating enough fruits, or I'm not eating enough like simple sugars. So I'll literally just eat a ton of fruit, especially super sugary fruits like oranges or bananas or dates. And I'll usually will eat whenever I feel hungry. Seriously, if I feel hungry, I'll eat like a fruit. if I feel really hungry. Usually I try to save those. I try to be pretty disciplined. I'll eat basically a good breakfast, and I'll eat a pretty good lunch, and I'll eat a pretty good dinner, and then throughout the day I'll just eat whenever I feel hungry. And then I don't feel sluggish if I sleep. If I sleep well, which is very hard to do. That's like the hardest thing for me right now to do. But the food stuff is helping, and going to bed earlier is helping. And then I just eat intensive fruit. And then what was the other part of the question? Oh yeah, the sluggish part. I already answered that one. We're good.
What's the best advice you can give me as a beginner concept artist and 3D student?
Beginner concept artist, 3D student. What's the best advice? The best advice I could say is to focus on less of the tools and focus on more of the principles. The tools will evolve, but the principles will still will stay relatively the same. So, I mean, these are the things that I would focus all my attention on. Nothing else. It's pretty much what I'm doing.
Just wanted to know if you're doing some wrist strengthening exercises stuff. I mean, to avoid carpal tunnel and decurvin.
Yeah, my carpal tunnel went away. My diet. I don't have any of the problems I used to. I would wake up with like tingly fingers. Gone. Well, I can draw for long periods of time now without I used to have to stretch my arms. Don't have to do it anymore. Because what carpal tunnel is just a buildup of plaque, and plaque comes from cholesterol and saturated fats, the excess of saturated fats, and absolutely from cholesterol. There is no minimum amount of cholesterol. You shouldn't have that shit in your body at all. Not even a little bit. That shit should not be in your body. Our bodies are not made for it, and we can't use it. We can't do it. We can't deal with it. What cholesterol is good at is blocking your arteries, which will keep your blood from pumping through the places that you need it, especially during good old times in the bedrooms. And then also, in your wrist, your heart, obviously, which causes heart attacks to people and strokes, to the brain because there's not blood flow going to your brain. This is why some people lose focus easier. And carpal tunnel almost gets rid of it. I don't have it anymore. It's fucking nuts, man.
Sorry, my mic was muted on Skype. Why didn't you tell me, AJ? You jerk.
That's all right, because I was repeating it.
You jerk.
Trying to keep it seamless.
How much does keeping fit affect your creativity? How and why? Thanks, Mr. Jones.
Blood flow. If you move your body, you have better blood flow. Your heart becomes better at pumping blood through your body. You need oxygen, glucose, and proteins to get to your brain for it to function properly. So if you are not an active person, which unfortunately most of us artists aren't, you'll find more opportunities to be creatively blocked, creatively frustrated, or you'll feel like your hormones and your balance of your hormones will just be at flux all the time. So there'll be days that maybe you ate some good food that day and you worked out a little bit and you have a little bit of energy going in your body, and you may have not recognized the pattern of things that you may have done that day or the day you did the things you did before, and you feel good that day, but then the next day you don't because you go back to your bad habits again. You don't recognize these patterns. This type of stuff kind of went away again. I just started getting way more focused. When I can fucking breathe. And that was true before I switched to this diet. When I worked out back in the day, I felt the same way. I felt like I was a little bit more mindful. I think this was why a lot of young kids, because they've proven scientifically that kids don't learn any faster than adults in terms of what's going on with the biology. It's very minimal, right? So it could be because diet, could be because of lack of exercise, lack of getting outside. It could be all those things that have added up over the years, right? That fuck us as we get older. It's not so much that we're getting older, right? Because you have these these super vegans who've been living almost to 100. They're still super alive and alert, because it does diminish. Like it does definitely, like just like your skin starts to wrinkle and your bones start to wither away. Yeah, things go away, but it wasn't enough to warrant like the lack of growth of in terms of intelligence and learning new stuff. It didn't make any sense.
Next question says, what's the importance of having hobbies or doing other activities besides art?
It's really important so you can maintain happiness. Because if you're only focused on just one thing for too long, it might become your job, right? And if it becomes your job, then it might not be enjoyable to you anymore. So it's really good to just practice new things constantly.
I came to a point where I believe I can start a career, but it's really hard to choose since I like so many things. I've been doing a business plan, but still looks fuzzy. My portfolio is inconsistent, but I am afraid to take one route and finish somewhere and have to start over. Losing time and money is another thing. Any good advice?
Pick one and just go with it. You have plenty of time. Stop stressing over it. You're worried that you might fail or you might not succeed, but let me tell you right now, you're already failing. You're already not succeeding. So what do you have to lose, right? I once tried to become a musician. I tried that. It worked out okay. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Streaming. Want to jump in? So, yeah, there was a time I wanted to be this, and there was a time I wanted to be that, etc., etc. And I've almost always done it. I always went for it and tried it, even if I wasn't successful. But I always ended up doing something okay with whatever I tried to do. And it's a good opportunity to try, even if you're not sure, because you're afraid that things might not work out. But trust me, if everyone knew how your life was going to turn out, if I knew that answer, then I would be making more money. I'll be making millions of dollars if I knew how to give people the right answers. You know, but the most general and most best advice I can give you is to stop wasting your time by thinking of what you really want to do. Just choose one thing that you like. It doesn't have to be the thing that you like the most. I was never an artist. I became one. And the better you become at something, the more addicted you become at it. Usually. You know? So, I would say the best advice for you is just do something, start somewhere. And if you're not sure exactly, and if I had to give you a recommendation, I would say just learn fundamentals of concept art, because concept art specifically allows you to understand lighting, form, anatomy, etc. at a very aggressive way, because you have to draw it from scratch. But you can learn these things from 3D, you can learn these things from alternative softwares or tools. You don't have to stick with just 2D. Alright, next question.
Next one says, I came to a point where, I actually read that. What's a similar way to approach working out the same way you teach your students to study art? What would you advise someone who wants to work out but doesn't know where to start? What should they do?
Yeah, that's easy. Just do natural movements. Don't do anything that hurts your bones and your joints or your muscles. If it feels weird, then don't do it. Stop doing it. If it looks like it's something that you should have better motion and flexibility to, then start at a very basic level, very low weight. I usually suggest people doing mostly body weight. In fact, I think body weight exercise is probably the most natural way to gain muscle strength and endurance, and it's something that I'm actually going to probably commit myself 100% to, with some minimal weight training. Weight training is good too, but a lot of weight training regimens are built for bodybuilding, and bodybuilding is nothing really natural about that. But like calisthenics, there's a lot of natural, there's a lot of natural tendencies about, calisthenics, because it's very acrobatic. It's forcing you to move with strength, And that is useful, right? If you look at like our closest like ancestors, like the primates, they can move really fluidly and effectively, and because they do pretty much calisthenics all day. And guess what? They're vegan too, right? At least mostly. They eat some bugs, but they are very, very flexible and very strong. So I would say, yeah, just push, like, start off, seriously, like, just, like, try to do, like, 50 push-ups in one day, take a break, like a 2 or 3 day break, and try again, and then in between then, like, try to do pull-ups, like, the next day, try to do, like, if you can't do pull-ups, there's plenty of YouTube videos on there that show you how to do beginner pull-ups, how to get into pull-ups, stuff that I did, and then do squats, you can do running, you can do sprinting, jumping, and there's all kinds of just natural movements. You just got to do a lot of it to the point where you're sweating, or to the point where your muscles are going to quit on you.
Next one says, when you draw, what comes to you first? The idea, structure of the character, the composition, or the background? What's the best way to start? That's some questions that some students do. Doesn't know how to compensate their work with elements.
Yeah, I focus mostly on the idea, but if you have a lot of bad fundamentals, then you want to practice your fundamentals a lot more before you start focusing on the idea. But at the same time, yeah, you should focus on getting better at drawing, as well as understanding what you're drawing.
All right, and that's all the Facebook questions.
Okay, cool. Now we can go to the other questions. I am here for another 15-20 minutes. I'll go a little bit over. I don't really have anything to do right after.
I have to head out at like 2:30.
Yeah.
Just a couple of comments. Someone said, in France, they call you a conspirationist for saying this kind of stuff regarding the...
Conspirationist?
Conspirator? Conspirator?
That's funny.
I guess in France they say conspirationist.
Oh, okay. That's
for
fine.
saying this stuff. It sounds crazy, but it's real. Business doesn't care for people's... it's real. Business doesn't care for people's health.
Yeah, they'll say whatever they need to say, right, to convince you otherwise, right? And it's like, here's the thing, man. If you really, like, a lot of people that talk to me about this, they're like, well, I need my meats, or I need my cheese, whatever. Like, I just like the taste of it. And I always come back with them saying, do you really like the taste of meat? Like, do you like the taste of, like, just raw meat? Like, if I gave you, like, a raw steak, or raw pork, or raw chicken, you just eat it. You'll be fine. Because you love the taste of meat. And they're like, well, no. Right? You got to cook it first. And I was like, well... yeah, exactly, right? Especially like poultry. If you don't cook it, it might fucking kill you. Like it's like that dangerous ass fish that they sell in like Japan, where like if they don't cut it right, it could murder you. You know what I'm talking about? Like I would never eat that fish, and I used to love to eat fish. But why would I eat something that could potentially kill me, right?
There is a chance you would die.
You might die from eating this, and that's pretty much what's happening if you eat like raw like poultry and raw like pork. It was even written in the Bible because people used to eat fucking raw pork or uncooked pork, and they would die all the fucking time. So the Bible, they had a, Bible at the time was very good for trying to prevent people from doing really silly things that they had no understanding of, And so eating pork was killing people. So they're like, look, if you eat pork, you're going to hell. And they're like, what? Oh no! All right, stop eating pork. And it worked, right, for a long time. And then then came modern refrigeration. Then came cooking, like modern cooking and like understanding of cooking and stuff like that. And not just to give pork a bad rap. I mean, even water. Like water was pretty bad, right? Water, if it wasn't distilled, could kill you too, right? There was a time where alcohol was healthier than water, right? So like we learned a thing or two about like foods and stuff like that. But it's unfortunate that something like this is, and here's the thing: amongst the medical community, there is no controversy, there is no conspiracy. Everyone who understands dietary nutrition, there is no conversation. They all know and agree that this, like the American diet specifically, is one of the things that is killing us tremendously, you know, and it is because the excess amount of meat, dairy, and eggs, right? And so it's not like it's fucking people trying to make you eat these foods is not has anything to do with it being healthy or not. It's because it is unhealthy, but they have to keep selling it to you because they'll run out of business. The medical industry, if they had this, if everyone, for instance, stopped eating meat and eggs and dairy, like if everybody on the earth just decided, hey, you know what? I heard Anthony Jones' stream the other day, and I'm convinced. And everyone just changed, which is very unlikely. But let's say it happens in a very interesting world. A few things will happen. One, people will start getting healthier, and will stop taking medicine. And 50% of the medical industry, pharmaceutical industry, will be destroyed, be decimated. The meat and dairy and egg industries will be decimated. Multi-billion, almost trillion-dollar industries will be destroyed overnight, right? And then global warming, that will almost start to be recovering. We can't fix it; it's already broken, but it will start to reverse. At least we start to not reverse it. I'm sorry, start to slow it down the way it was meant to be, because the grazing of animals and feeding those animals the food takes a lot of rainforests to destroy, takes a lot of water to feed and supply, and more importantly, they're farting cow farts all day. Pretty bad. And then world hunger would probably be solved if we can also organize our efforts, because we would have enough food. Because all the food that we're feeding all the animals we eat is enough to feed the world twice over. So there's a lot of things ethically that would be solved, and there's also a lot of things health-wise that would be fixed, like right away. And like I said, I'm not an ethical. I didn't switch my diet for ethical reasons. That's just the bonus. I did it mostly because I was feeling like I was dying, and I don't feel like I'm dying anymore.
What's your opinion on the B12 controversy with veganism?
There is no controversy. You got to have your B12. Like I mentioned earlier, water used to kill us, right? Well, drinking water also contains lots of B12, and so B12 is just a natural bacteria that we have to eat or have in our system. It's really not a lot, though. You'd be surprised how little. If you buy one of those supplement pills, which I do, you just take once a week, you're good. And it's enough to supply you for the whole year, maybe 2 years. And you're good. Or you get fortified milks. Like I also drink a lot of milk that's fortified with B12. You can't overdose on it. You just pee it out if you have too much of it. But here's the funny thing. It's because you get B12 in your animals, right? Because the animals are also fortified with B12. What I mean by this is that animals themselves don't produce B12. They are supplemented B12 so that we can get it in our own diets. Because unfortunately, 50% of America is B12 deficient. And I'm sorry to say this, the vegan percentage is less than 5% of the American people, is less than 5%, I believe. Oh, actually, in the world, I don't think it's American. It's it's freaking very low. So that means even if you're eating your meat, you might not be getting your B12. So you might want to get your blood checked and make sure that you're even getting your goddamn B12, because you might not be. And so I wouldn't be concerned if I was only a vegan doing this. I'd be concerned if I was a human living in this world, living in this humane and very ethically clean world. Because we are cleaning our foods, we are cleaning our stuff, so we don't get those bacteria anymore. But we also don't get all these other bad things that could kill us overnight. So, but it's a really easy thing to replace or supplement. And I think the funny thing is, like when I switched to vegan, I didn't even realize that I might have been deficient before, right? And my wife was she was deficient before, and she realized it because we started taking it, and she feels way better now too. And so I think it's not a problem that is unique to us vegans.
Last question says, what's the elephant's diet? Look at
He eats humans.
No,
He's gonna get cholesterol.
Someone said, is it bad to eat too many bananas?
No. It just isn't, man.
600 bananas.
Yeah, you can you can let me rephrase that. There is such a thing as too many bananas, right? If you eat enough bananas that you choke yourself, if you eat enough bananas where you're forcing yourself to eat the bananas, then you might be eating too much, man. But I mean, just if you feel like eating a banana, eat a fucking banana. The unfortunate truth is that you're probably eating too little, right? Like we're supposed to have about 3,000 milligrams of potassium a day, like just average. Like, hold on, let me see. Banana, potassium. Yeah, we're supposed to get like about 3,000, I believe. Like that's like around the minimum of what we should be getting in our diet. And I'm talking about potassium. And like one medium-sized banana, about 7-inch banana, which is like a large banana, actually, is only carrying 422 milligrams, right? So that means you need to eat like 8 to 10 bananas a day, at least, to get the minimum requirement of your potassium. Luckily for you, if you switch over, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits have potassium in it. You know what doesn't have potassium? Yeah, you already know this answer. I'm not going to answer it for you. So let me ask you guys who continuously eat meat, aren't you guys concerned about your B12 deficiency? Also your iron deficiency? Also your calcium deficiency? Also your potassium deficiency? Aren't you concerned about this? Because I can tell you right now, you're not getting it from your fucking meat. I promise you. Like, you're just not. And so, reconsider not just becoming a vegan in general, but getting a hold of your goddamn diet. And you'll just come to the same conclusion as I did. Because I wasn't originally going to switch to vegan. That was never my intention. It just happened once I saw more and more evidence. And saw the difference in my health.
That's it.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate you guys' open minds too. I know some people can get pretty aggressive. But I've had no bad experience with this, actually. Every time I talk about this with other people, usually the opposite happens, right? Like,
nobody,
like with you.
Really
you
rose up.
Yeah, usually, like, you were just like, yeah, makes sense. I'll do it. I was like, what? And then your brother, I remember I went on to San Fran, too. There was people there. I was just, like, telling them. They're like, holy shit, you're right. And I was like, what?
Yeah, I'm down for a science project, and, it's been that since I started, but it does make sense,
Yeah.
A lot of it. So
anyway, yeah,
do you know Neil deGrasse Tyson is against veganism?
I can tell. You see him? I was thinking that too. I
just Googled it. I was like, oh, there's apparently a talk about it.
I was actually very disappointed to think that he might not understand the ramifications. And here, let me be clear here. Like, it's not that I think people should be vegan. Vegan is just what I happen to be, right? Like, by what I eat is kind of definition what a vegan is. But also a vegan can be someone who eats and drinks potato chips and canned soda, right? Like, what I really would like to say that I am is just straight up a human eating a human diet, which is mostly comprised of whole foods and plant-based foods. Because there's no reason for me to eat any animal, because I don't need to. We are makeshift omnivores, which means that we can digest meat, eggs, and milk, but only for survival purposes, because sometimes we will grow crops and then they get murdered or destroyed because of seasons or pests. So we have to make do with what we got. And sometimes we have to hunt for our food, and we have to eat that food, because otherwise we will starve to death. We live in a world, if you don't live in that world where you have to hunt for your food, like literally have to hunt for your food, you don't have to eat it. Trust me on that. And for those of you who minimize your meat consumption, that's fine too. The Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest diets on this planet, and their diet is consists of mostly plant-based foods and some fish. So,
nope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. And I'm curious now. I want to see what Neil deGrasse Tyson has to say.
Yeah, me too. All right,
I'm sure
I'm out. I gotta head out.
He's really biased. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Thanks, John, for moderating.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then, peace out, friends. Hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to keep painting this guy until I feel it's done. And I'll post it on Facebook so you guys can see it. This will be on YouTube later on, too, for those of you who are curious. Laters.